And I was just laughing in my head while you were telling the story about the pronunciation, because your mother, when you're trying to, there's a chapter where you're trying to teach your mother a lot of technology stuff, and she likes to say, instead of Google, Goo-goo, because that means...
Well, we'll get to the punchline in a sec. Who here has tried teaching their parents how to use the internet? And how was that experience for you? Can I actually read a bit from the book? This will just give you an idea of what it was like to teach my mother how to use the internet. She asked... okay, this is a conversation leading to why I started teaching her how to use these technologies. Why does everyone email nowadays, she said, or this SMS? No one has time to pick up the phone and call their mother? One day you will think to yourself, oh, maybe I should call Mum on the telephone like a normal person. But hello, Jenny is dead. Yes, you will have a dead mother. Then how will you feel? Not even knowing your own mother is dead. You will feel so awful I cannot even imagine. You will vomit from guilt. My dead body will stink up the house. That is how dead I will be. Stinky dead, because no one calls Mummy. We took this as our cue to introduce her to the world of mobile phones and bought her a simple prepaid Nokia that was cheap to run and easy to use. We were all on the same network so she could call us for free and vice versa. To our surprise, she took to this new technology easily. Oh, this is all you have to do to make an SMS, she said, punching in numbers that magically became letters. Even someone with brain damage could use this. And so, while media commentators discussed the death of the English language at the hands of text messaging youth, my mother's communication became more creative and avant-garde. Her texts were laced with flurries of capital letters, improvised messes of punctuation, and obsolete German characters like Eszett. On our birthdays, we would get SMSs recounting our births, like, all my discomfort, ooh, and painful memories, ooh. And she would, the O's that she used to say ooh were umlauted, so it had the snake bite on top of it. So they would form a line of female mouths screaming in labour. The Google bit is this, okay. So I'm sitting down with her and I'm trying to explain these basics. This is a woman whose last experience with a keyboard was a typewriter, okay? So she's never used a mouse. And I'm trying to explain to her what these things are. I showed her how the mouse controlled an arrow on the screen. And why do I want this arrow? She asked. What does this arrow do exactly? Well, I said it points to things. Many computer concepts I soon realised were pretty abstract. When we checked her email, she would ask confounding questions, sphinx-like riddles that melted my brain. What was the internet? Was Google a part of the internet? What was the difference between Facebook and Google? Was Facebook controlled by the mouse? Does everyone on Facebook use the same mouse? What was the difference between sending an email and being online? Was she online now? And as someone who uses these technologies every day, I didn't know how to answer these questions. So I just Googled this, she asked when we loaded Google. Google, we both knew, was a crude and childish Cantonese term for penis. Yes, Mum, very funny. Google, she said, again laughing. That's my mum and the internet.
I want to give her a clap.
Oh yeah, give my mother a round of applause.
Do we have any more questions in the crowd?
School camp, you went on. Can you tell us a bit about that?
If you didn't hear the question, it was from Cassie Locke, and Cassie asked me about the school camp that I went on with Cassie in year 10. There's a chapter in the book called God Camp, and we went to a Christian school. And you know, when I'm not sure, like, how many of you here went to Christian schools? Yeah, yep. I always thought the Catholics were the most hardcore, right?
Oh,
like,
Catholic.
Yeah, they're not the most hardcore at all. You guys are weak. It's the Lutherans that are really, really full on, and we went to church every day. We started off school every day with worship, and the centerpiece of this Christian education was a camp in Year 10 that they called Survival Camp. And they called it Survival Camp because the goal was to get out alive. It was quite interesting. At that time, my mental health wasn't really that great as well. And of course, one of the first things they give you upon arrival at the camp is a machete, which is really great. I'm not sure public liability insurance covers that sort of stuff anymore. And so we're shipped out into the woods for a month, which I think is exactly the same time that Survivor contestants spend on their host islands as well. And we hiked a lot. Yeah, Cassie's nodding. We hiked a lot, and the biggest thing that weighed us all down was our Good News Bible. You know, the paper's paper thin, but
there's a lot of good news.
There's a lot of good news in there, absolutely.
Yep, is what I hear.
Yeah, but look, I think that whole time I whinged and moaned throughout that entire thing. But
a month of macheting through forest,
yeah.
I think you're entitled to.
And totally, and the punchline is because we weren't given shovels to dig our own toilets properly on the solo, which is where you're dropped out one by one within screaming distance of each other and told to camp the night. Because they'd forgot their shovels, I did my business near a tree and I forgot that it was there, and I ended up stepping in it. And you know, I wasn't quite happy with what was happening at that stage of my life, but it makes for great material.
Did you get some title like Ultimate Survivor at the end?
No, I wish we did. No, we just got shipped back to our parents and washed our clothes and watched the washing machine turn red from all the dirt. It's quite great.
I don't understand quite what the point of it is, though. It's not school holidays. It's not like a holiday camp. Is it during school?
It's during school, so you go in.
Is this legal?
Builds character.
Doesn't seem legal to me.
Builds character, it builds stamina. It gets you closer with God because, you know, there's Bible time as well and prayer time and stuff like that. And I think, you know, like a lot of us who went to that school were total snots as well. And forcing children at a certain age to fend for themselves with machetes is really good and healthy, I feel.
Because I read that in the book Lord of the Flies.
Yeah,
I know how
that's right.
ends.
That's right.
Not well.
I have a question, Ben.
Yes.
Do you feel now, like, because you've mined your own life so much for feature stories in certain nationally distributed magazines?
What is it? The
and
best-selling, the fastest-growing magazine in Australia, Joe?
Do you now, when anything happens to you in real life, do you have a little light bulb going off going, ooh, good story? And is that holding you back from having real-life experiences? Or is the narrator in your head kind of going all the time?
I have very funny friends.
He thought about the question quietly.
I have very funny friends who have very funny conversations, and seeing one of them in the audience here tonight, I remembered a conversation we had about when you become a couple and you get very comfortable with each other and you get to the point where you're able to fart in each other's company, for instance, and yeah, and there was a motto developed on this evening of discussion where we compared stories about being in long-term relationships. I think it was something like "keep it sexy, keep it hot" that one of my dear friends gave me, and I borrowed it. And when you have a conversation like that, you cannot. I mean, it would almost be irresponsible not to share it with the world, right? Because those conversations are rarely held in a public forum, and I think they're important to the public dialogue.
As someone that's your Facebook friend and Twitter, because we're, you know, very savvy.
We're very Gen Y.
Do you find that you waste a lot of material on updates? And I don't mean you specifically, but as someone that sort of, you know, writes for fun as well, I realise that there's days where I sit there and I'm not doing any of my own work, And then I go, but you've updated your status 10 times with lengthy sort of hilarious
But that
jokes.
is your work. That is work.
I don't get paid for Facebook.
No, right,
I wish.
okay.
In a perfect world, Ben, I would. But you're pretty prolific as well and amusing on Facebook.
But I love following other people on Twitter and Facebook, like the gold that people come up with. Yun Bond, are you in the audience tonight? I'll meet you later. Oh, hello. She's fantastic. But, all these people, I just recently found that function on Twitter where you star things, and they become your favourites. I didn't know that existed. And so I've been starting to star things. And if you've been starred, I'm sorry, but the reason I've started is because I think that's going to make for a good story.
Amazing. Any more questions?
Mm.
Wow, it might be up to me to... I don't know. The Facebook thing was my ace up the sleeve. No, I got nothing. Thank you.
Interpretive dance.
Do you find that people are reluctant to reveal things to you in case you might use it?
Alcohol breaks down those walls quite effectively. Look, I think people know me well enough now, and the people close enough to me know this, that I am a consultative sort of guy. Like, if you have come up with a pretty incredible premise for something that I think would work as a story, I'll ask you whether I can use it. If you've come up with a great motto about long-term relationships, like keep it sexy, keep it hot, I'll ask you whether I can use it and whether you want your name to remain as your real name or to adopt a pseudonym. So in that way, I just want to, a lot of you are faces that are unfamiliar to me. I don't want you to be scared by saying hello. I don't want you to be scared by coming up to me and telling me your deepest, darkest secrets. I think that's really important as a starting point for a friendship. So come say hi.
Can you hear me back here? Do you have any advice for recently graduated journalism students desperately trying to get into the field?
I didn't do journalism. I did a degree called what was it called? It was called creative writing, and those of us who graduated from it love to call it creative shiting. And it was a really good degree because when I went through it, we did journalism subjects as well. They were mandatory. They're not anymore, which I find is a shame because it teaches you things like structure and punctuation and grammar. And so when you finish that, what do? I just kept writing a lot. I became that annoying little work experience kid, the little Asian dude knocking at people's doors saying, "Hey, can I write for you?
How did you
your
start?
Work experience guy?"
Even I'm curious.
I started as a music nerd.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go through your teen years, and I think there's something about puberty that kicks off this gland where you start.
Mariah Carey. No, that was pre-puberty. Yeah. And no, I was really obsessed with music journalism. I just thought it was the most amazing thing. Want to be the Lester Bangs of...
Want to be the Lester Bangs. Oh, yeah. I like hoarded Rolling Stone magazine, and when I sort of fell in love with, writing properly was when I was 16 years old. And I wrote a letter to the editor for Rolling Stone, and it was this really earnest piece about the Australian Republic. Remember when there was a referendum about that? Yeah. I was 16 years old, and I thought, it's so unfair that I can't vote for an Australian Republic, man. The Queen is nuts. It sucks. It was really awful, really disrespectful letter, and they published it as Letter of the Month, and they sent me a stereo as a prize, and it was my first ever stereo. When you grow up in a family of 7 people in a 3-bedroom house, you do not have anything of your own. We had the communal stereo, so I had this stereo where I could start listening to stuff, and most of it, at the time was Dr. Feelgood late at night. Do you remember Dr. Feelgood?
Enlightening.
Yeah, it was really edifying sort of stuff. But yeah, and then from there, I started listening to a lot of music, wanted to write for music magazines, and I think as a lot of us do, start writing for street press, and then you just keep writing for other stuff as well. I'm not sure if I can offer advice because I'm not sure my trajectory was necessarily planned as such. You know, the reason I started writing for Frankie is because I met an old friend of mine drunk at a Belle and Sebastian concert. I'm not sure if that's advice that you give people. Is it,
Keep
Joe?
drinking.
Is it? No.
And what about in The Good Weekend as well? You've written for The Good Weekend?
No, I've written for Q Weekend, which is like which is sort of like the Queensland News Limited version, but you know, same font, same font.
Yeah, that's all I ask.
Yeah.
Because I remember reading about you, Ben, before ever meeting you, and thinking, what a precocious little bugger. I wanted you to be my friend, so I stalked you, but
we were stalking each other.
Yeah, we
at
stalked
that
each other.
time,
It's
I
really
think.
kind of romantic if it wasn't for your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Any more questions in the crowd? Yes.
Maybe read another passage.
That would be great.
Okay.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do?
I don't know. I read this. You know, I read this passage from the book, which is the most reflective and honest about my mother, and it's how she actually speaks. And I feel a little uncomfortable reading it because in my family it's very, very natural to talk about each other's bodies and bodily functions in quite a frank way. And when I do a public reading of it, I just watch everyone's jaws drop in horror. And I know that everyone's thinking, how can you write or talk about each other in this way? So with that in mind, I'm going to read it. It's from a chapter called Baby Love, and it sort of consolidates all of the stories that my own mother told us about all of our births. Okay, and there is some graphic language, and I apologise, but it's not mine. It's my mother's. Over the course of 20 years, my mother's body underwent a remarkable and cruel transformation from a petite, small-waisted Chinese Malaysian beauty to a pumping, sweaty baby machine that spat out 5 children in quick, bloody, semi-automatic succession. In some mammals, I think, this many children is referred to as a litter. Mum also said that childbirth was unbearably, gratuitously painful. When I asked her once to compare and rate each of our births, which was easier, which was faster, she balked. "No birth is easy," she exclaimed. "Of course a man would ask that question. Men can't even begin to imagine. Can you imagine squeezing a lemon coming out of your penis hole? Yes, that's what it's like. I'd like to see a man squeeze lemons out of his penis hole. Out of your penis hole, Benjamin. You can't even imagine, can you? A whole lemon. With the points on each end and everything, except this lemon has limbs. Out of your penis hole. Penis hole." And then she delved into the more graphic details of childbirth for my sisters. How children robbed you of calcium while in the womb and weakened your teeth. And how pregnancy made you want to hurl at the slightest smell. And how for weeks after giving birth you'd walk around uncontrollably leaking like you'd been shot. I usually had a strong stomach for gore, but her frank descriptions left me feeling light-headed. "Plus," she said, "every woman's vagina tears when they have their first child, and with your firstborn you're bound to get stitches." When she was in labour with Candy, she said, she underwent an induced labour before her doctor said words no woman should ever have to hear. "Jenny," he said gravely, "what I'm going to do now is to put a needle in your vagina, and then I'm going to cut it with a scalpel." In retrospect, Mum said she was glad he sliced her open. "Nowadays," she said, "some doctors let your vagina split open naturally, insisting it was better than cutting you with a blade and stitching you up." "No way," Mum told my sisters. "Letting it tear will make you look like you have third-degree burns down there. My only advice to you is this. If you have children, don't let your vagina tear. Tell your doctor, stitch." Still, she added that she suspected that after 5 children, none of it really made a difference. "After that many childbirths, your vagina meat goes all floppy," she said, wrinkling her nose. "Not so stretchy, dingly-dangly." A few days after this conversation, my mother phoned me. "Just in case you write about this," she said, "I wasn't referring to my vagina. My vagina is fine. Write that down. My mother's vagina is fine. In fact, my vagina hasn't been touched in so long, it has sealed back up."
Thank you very much, but I think we'll probably just leave it there unless anyone else has any questions about vaginas or tearing. No? Excellent. I think we've summed it up.
It's a conversation killer. Thank you.